Journeying into an irritated mind. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Journey of Self. Today, I come to you with the story of Renu and her grandmother. So, meet Renu. She is a 41-year-old senior project lead, but is an orphan and has been brought up by her grandmother. So, today, she plays two roles: one, that of a project lead managing a huge team, and also a caregiver to her grandmother. It's been 3 years ago when her grandmother was diagnosed with a heart ailment, post which Renu had shifted most of her work remote, and she's been taking care of her ailing grandparent while also being an active leader, supporting her team globally, regionally, and trying to balance both the act with as much efficiency as possible. Sometimes, some days are good, but sometimes the project demands, the work, the deadlines kind of stretch Renu beyond her working hours. But she's doing well. Having 3 years passed by, her grandmother now has entered a more senior age level. As she advances in her age, Renu finds that she often falls sick, because of which her focus and attention towards her has to be more, but at the other end, her work has been pulling her. And with the diet, checkups, and constant support to her grandmother, plus the work demands, both of them has transformed in a very gradual way a concerned caregiver that Renu was into an irritable Renu. She has completely unconscious of this slow change that has silently came in and settled inside her, which is more now seen in her behavior and in her constant thoughts, her worries, and her anxiety. She's become so irritable, so much so that she's reacting to small things. The cracks in her personality are showing up in various ways, both at work and also with her friends. This is called mirror neurons, where we project our vibes so much to others that often others kind of respond in very similar ways. This was one major incident when Renu was in a huge fight with her best of friends, leaving them as irritated as she was. And when this fight ended, that's when the first call Renu made was to me. She has been my client for past several years, and this was the fifth time she was returning to me. So Journey of Self was not really new for her, but this time I gave her something very different to help her first change. But before she change and really find her way out of this irritation that has kind of hijacked her mind, she needed to understand the root cause of it. So we directly jumped into a deep dive session. This was because of two things. One, she was an existing and a returning client, so she knew the whole process. Second, her case and her issue was partially, I was aware of her, meaning I was aware of the things going on in her life and the previous issues that she had shared with me. So I gave her the deep dive sessions, and during those sessions, I gave her a combination of expressive writing tools, very bespoke, very customized journal prompts, and a meditation through visualization, which I did along with her, because sometimes I've also realized that you need a human support here when you run certain visualization techniques. So I ran this with her and we did this in two separate sessions. And then when she finished this whole deep dive sessions, which ran for 3 to 5 weeks, 1 hour each, and in between she had work to do, what we really found was a grieving, emotionally exhausted state of mind that Renu was carrying inside, but was trying to mask it up through irritation. This is how her inner self looked like. Friends, often our concerns they turn into irritation because our mind registered that as helplessness. And when we find ourselves helpless, we don't know what we really need to do next. The very realization of the thought that things are beyond our control kinds of humble us, but at the same time leave us in a constant state of uncertainty. And this uncertainty can trigger anxiety in some people. For some, it will be helplessness, bringing a flood of emotions of sadness and pain. So, irritability is just a symptom, it's not a standalone emotion. And behind that mask, there was a lot going on for Renu. The second thing I told Renu, because all that we found through her work of those 5 sessions, one thing that really stood out was certain humble realities of life that we simply need to sit and accept. It sounds really simple, but when we are doing it practically, it's not that easy. So I gave her self acceptance tools after the deep dive sessions through which this intensive work she was able to really accept herself to things as is. Now, one clarification, friends, I would like to mention here, self acceptance is a huge, huge concept. We can never attain an absolute self acceptance of how life is, but we can of one particular phase. So, in this case of Renu, her grief, her inner turmoil, her irritation, and many things that cropped up out of that deep dive session, I taught her self acceptance of things beyond her control, which might vary for each one of us. For this particular phase, that acceptance was good enough for her to move out of that anxious, stressful, irritable state. And that's what Renu did. She acknowledged and accepted it. And it actually took her another 3 to 7 weeks to really get into the zone. So once she did that, she was now back with her grandmother, again as her caregiver, a wonderful caregiver with compassion, kindness, and not wearing an emotional mask, but showing up with complete authenticity, kindness, and a mature approach to what she was really taking care of. There's a quote which says, an irritable soul is often carrying more than it shows. Irritation is just with scratching the surface level. If, like Renu, you have been into a similar phase, if your irritation are also on account of something that you're wearing a mask, but underneath there's a turmoil, you need help, you need a human connection where you could share, speak out, and even find a way out of the conundrum that you're in, I invite you to join the journey of self. The link is given in the description box of this video. Let's talk.